Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony, and thank you for joining us here on the live stream. If you're catching us live, thank you. If you're catching us on the replay, thank you again. Thank you for taking the time to be able to soak in the Star Trek geekdom that is Star Trek New Worlds. Well, what is Star Trek New Worlds? It is a turn-based strategy game that we play online to show you using the Federation and Empire rule set as used by the Amarillo Design Bureau, or as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau, excuse me. We show this, or we play this online using such advanced technologies as email and, of course, Vassal, which I will show you here in a moment, that allows us to be able to generate, create, share these maps that allow us to be able to move our little cursors, our little counters across it, and wage war across the galaxy. Thanks for if that is something that is of interest to you, if you like all things Star Trek geeky and sci-fi, then please consider putting your name below my face right now, as Nick has done by hitting the subscribe button. Nick, thank you for joining us as our subscriber. If memory serves, your name was actually on the last live stream. And although our subscriber count has grown, that suggests to me that you might have accidentally hit the unsubscribe button and then hit it again. Either way, if this is something of interest to you, then please hit that subscribe button. Help us as we grow to our next milestone, which is 500 subs, so that we can unlock the community tab in YouTube and be able to share with you some more, engaging kind of content on this platform. We are currently at 190. Can we get to 200 before the end of the week? It's only 10 subscribers. Help us get there before Friday, getting over 200 subscribers on this amazing geek channel called Star Trek New Worlds. Because, of course, what do we like to do here? We're all about creating a community of players who enjoy this Federation Empire game. So let me stop talking about that. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we sort of get into the content. But what will we be discussing today? Today we're going to be exploring exploring the heating up, as you might have seen on the thumbnail, action on the border. Things are happening. The game is getting pushed into a world of total war. What does that look like? Well, we will talk about some of the epic battles that occurred over the course of this past turn. We'll discuss the perks of MERCs, as in why are we using Orion pirates, and an example of how one player has used them to great effect. We'll have to see. Nonetheless, they have used a great deal of mercenaries in this last turn. And of course, we'll do the turn 52 reveal as we are going across the crescent of players and discussing who's who in the zoo and what's going on. Two other little things when it comes to housekeeping. One of the things I've noticed on the channel is that you all love the Star Trek New Worlds trailer, that 60-second promo that just kind of gives you a flavor of what it is that we do. Now, of course, our sort of in-house player-based CGI artist has been needing a little motivation, a little crowd support for the kind of stuff that you want to see. He's incredibly talented. We love the work that he does, but if you want to see more of that CGI ship model kind of stuff, then please put your comments below. Throw it in the chat. Let us know and allow us to show the support to our local CGI artist to be able to get that stuff out there. He's incredibly talented. I think it's amazing what he does, and we just want to be able to showcase that more on the channel. If that's something you want to see more of, then please pop it in the comments, pop it in the chat, let me know, and let him know how much you appreciate the work that he does. Lastly, we are in turn 52 of this campaign, and things are starting to get hot. But there were 50 turns that led up to this, 50 turns that set the stage, 50 turns of building blocks that got us to where we are today. Is that something that you would like to see summarized in perhaps a video on demand? A short episode that goes over the history of the Romulans, the Hydrons, the ISC, what the Klingons do to get them into the scuffle that they're in now between the Romulans and the Carnivan. Do you want to see all that? If that's the case, then please let me know. Put your comments in. Be vocal about the kind of content that you want to see on this channel. We obviously do this live stream every Saturday at 11 o'clock on a weekly basis. But is there other kind of stuff that you want to see? More tutorials, more history, more surrounding content or discussion about the narrative, the role-playing aspects of this game to bring flavor and texture to what it is that you're seeing here today. If that's something you like I say, be vocal, don't be shy, hit us in the comments, hit us in the chat. Speaking of the chat, let's go to it now. Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to the top. Bill is with us today. Not only Bill Smith, but William Bill Linton. Thank you very much for joining us. James McCormick, hail to the Empire. Yes, you're on the right team. You can come here every day, all day long, James. Don't you be shy. Jim, Nova Cannons are hot. Well, hopefully they're not too hot because we don't want you to melt down there, Jim, because you might be a little hot under the collar after some of the things that have happened this past turn. So yeah, we got Jim, Bill, and James, Jim, and Bill in the chat right now. So that's fantastic and fun. And as we carry on, for those of you in the chat, if you see Daniel RGM pop into the chat at some point while I'm spouting off and telling stories, then please let him know to send me the West map, because as of right now, we're only going to be talking about the the conflict crescent, or the east side of the map. I need the west side of the map to be able to share with you today. If you see him pop in, then hopefully we can do that on the fly as we go. Last thing before we dive into the turn reveal and the discussion of what's going on, you might notice that my voice sounds a little rough. I'm trying hard to be able to work through what seems to be something going on in my throat. I'm going to be sucking on a little water at some point here, but just to let you know, my voice is not 100%, but we will adapt and overcome and carry on. So with that being said, let's get into the business of turn 52. All right, everybody. Here we are. It is the Romulans, the big red at the top of the map. And I say big red because, let's face it, they are big and bad when it comes to their fleet. Let's take a second and do just that. Look at fleet cap, and I will pop up, since we have a little bit of room on the screen here, I'll do EP at the same time. But, of course, yeah, let's do it that way for now. All right, starting with EP, we're going to start with the Carnivons at 34.5. 34.5 EP, matching, tied with the Gorn on the map. Hydrons are at a sweet 36. The ISC at 36.5. The Klingons at 38.5. And the Romulans, let's not forget the Remans. The Remans at 36 and the Romulans at 36.5. So what do we see here? 2 at 34.5, Hydrons at 36, Remans at 36, Romulans 36.5, and the Klingons, the ISC at 36.5, and the Klingons at 38.5. Everyone is close and tight when it comes to the economies. So really, there's no big disproportionate difference between the economies. Everyone's firing on all cylinders and quite competitive. If we look at the fleet cap right now, when we look at the Carnivons at 47 ship equivalents, that fleet keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They have a 111-213 split, so showing a lot of combat potential with the ships they're putting in the field. We also have the Gorn with 30 ship equivalents, which is significant because their ship count has been lagging for so long. They are now starting to, it seems, pump out more hulls. You can see their 62-123 split, very much a 50-50 kind of thing, as with most factions here. But with 30 ship equivalents, they are starting to grow their fleet. The Hydrons at 49, interesting to note. Their 49 ship equivalents at 105, 196, a little bit behind the Carnivons. That just would give you a sort of a telegraph notion of the Carnivons building perhaps some bigger battleships versus the Hydron fleet being some slightly smaller ships. Of course, the difference of two hulls, not that big, not that significant, but the Hydron fleet has not been growing at the same rate as some of the other factions in the game. Speaking of other factions, the ISC just above the Hydrons are at 30 ship equivalents with an 88-145 split. So interesting to note, a 20% difference in combat power between the Hydrons and the ISC, and we'll get into it in a minute why that's important. But nearly a 40% different in ship count, because the Hydrons are almost at 50 and the ISC are at 30. So that's quite the delta or difference in hulls, not necessarily represented in combat effectiveness, but nonetheless, quite a difference there. The Klingons are now at 50 ship equivalents with a 117-180 split, making them a little bit more akin to their Reman brethren up on the north. Speaking of the Remans are at 55 ships with a 164-222 split. Goodness gracious. So they are by far the biggest, baddest folks on the map. And lastly, the Romulans with 45 ship equivalents with an 82-151 split. Something particular to note here on that dynamic, look at the ISC with 30 ships and an 88 attack, 145, and the Romulans with similar attack and defense factors, but noticeably more ships. Just interesting to note there. That fundamentally is because of the technology of their ships, W era, for example, and we'll get down there and explore why that is the case in a moment. As you're listening to me give you that late night DJ voice, do you like that kind of raspy or like deep tone that I've got going on right now? That's the sore throat working its action. But if you like that sound, I'll see what I can do. Let me know in the chat. All right, Remans, what do you got? What are you showing me? Let's see what you got. All right, let's take away the ships for a second to see what's happening on the base front. Now, we knew that this base over here was in the midst of being constructed, but it is now complete. And if we look at their general sort of supply network design, we can see here what I would say is a very effective distribution to be able to maximize on exploration. This particular base is at the sort of the edge of their particular supply 3. Although we've theorized they might have supply 4, it would seem that their base construction pattern is a 3-hex pattern, supporting the idea that they still only have supply 3. Based on that, you can see that they've got a lot of reach to be able to go out and touch the edge of the explored space that they currently have, and not only in the north or the northern part of their explored space, but sort of in the middle and, of course, down below. Next, I would see most likely some kind of bases being built along the border here, but we shall see how the environment changes things. You can see there's the exploration ship, speaking of down at the bottom of the map, working to explore and pull back that curtain, that fog of war, but we have other convoys. Because they don't have tugs yet, we have convoys in place ready to construct various bases on the go. When it comes to their exploration, you can see that the ships are in full effect in stereo sound. These KD-3Es are their exploration survey cruisers, and away we go. Oh, you know what? I just said they didn't have tugs, but what do we have here? It is a KT-4. The T4 is the Klingon tug, the KT4, the Reman tug. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the Remans to the world of tugs. We'll be able to see how effective they're able to use and employ their tugs, because tugs just give you more flexibility and maneuverability when it comes to supply and construction. Good thing about tugs, they can repair bases and things like that at a much higher rate than convoys. And of course, they move faster and are quite more robust. So we can see that the KT4 is on its way out to the front, so to speak, the outskirts of the western fringe here, as these exploration cruisers keep doing what they're doing. What do we got? We got near the homeworld. Do we still have Hammer Fleet? Oh no, Hammer Fleet, otherwise known as Cerberus Fleet on the map. Little label here that you may not be able to see right at the top of it is Hammer Fleet, Fleet Commander MC, as in hammer time. I would dance if I could, but I don't think you'd be able to see my feet moving in my parachute pants. So Hammer Fleet is on the move, so it would seem, moving from the homeworld and heading down towards the southeastern portion of his map. Interesting to note that fleet didn't move at its maximum movement rate, just sort of made itself a little bit closer to the border. Interesting. I'd be curious what that's all about. Other than that, we've got not a lot of action, Jackson, in the Reman fleet or the Reman area of space, but just this continuing preparation for what is inevitably going to be a conflict. Where is that conflict going to happen? We know from previous live streams that the Lyrans are out there in the west. They're probably very close, and in fact, these Bravo hexes that have been explored just above my head there are perfect examples of areas of space that have been explored by the Lyrans and the Remans, and it's just a matter of time before they start bumping up in the night. We'll see when that happens, probably in the next couple of turns. Like I say, total war is coming. How bad will it be? Speaking of total war, let's go down to the exciting factions that are stirring things up. Let's start with the ISC, and of course, there's always an advantage to being on top, if you know what I mean. The ISC, currently, we can see a couple of crippled ships here. These are probably leftovers or maybe latent consequences or casualties of what happened up here when they took the Paravian homeworld. I'd be interested to see in the chat, if Paul's in the chat, if he can comment about where these crippled ships came from. They're too far away from the border to be anything going on with the hydrants, but yeah, there are some casualties here. Of particular note, and I don't know the answer to this, is there was a giant or pretty significant juggernaut fleet that popped up in the vicinity of Squawk right here, this little planet. What happened to them? I haven't seen or heard news of what happened to that juggernaut fleet, and I was curious because I didn't see an ISC fleet big enough, bad enough, or strong enough to be able to push them back. What happened? Where did they go? We're going to need an update from Paul in the chat. Hopefully he'll be there at some point during the game or during the live stream today. We'll be able to chit-chat about that and figure out exactly what happened to that juggernaut fleet. I'm pretty confident, based on the fact that I don't see a pool of cripples or destroyed ships, in that area. So they didn't attack them. What happened? Maybe the juggernauts were peacefully deciding to bugger off. I don't know. I doubt that would be the case, but who knows? We shall see. The thing that I'd like to dial in on and really focus on for today's episode is down here. No, I can't zoom in anymore. So down here in this area right between the ISC and the hydrants. Let's take away the ships for a second so we can see what's going on down here. So as we can see, we've got 4 ISC bases sort of in this vicinity near the fog of war hexes and the border that they have. You'll see that because of the fog of war, there's not a clear path across the border really for either, except with these 2 choke points, Whiskey and Yankee 21. Now, these are the 2 choke points that allow transit or travel between the ISC and the hydrants. And in that choke point, or sort of blocking those choke points, is the YBS in Whiskey 22 and this Orion YDK in X-Ray 22. Now, let's bring the ships back, and we can see that there are a number of crippled vessels in and around this area. I'm very interested for a couple of reasons. One, why are there 2 crippled Vols in a fog of war hex? Je ne sais pas. We can see that there is an Orion ship that's crippled, a YCA. We have a Vol that is crippled over top one of the Orion bases. And, of course, we have these fleets here. Let's pull up, I'm assuming, Golden Expeditionary Fleet. Let's pull them up and see what we got. So Gold Fleet, I'm assuming that's going to be metal. I got to admit, I really don't like the way the Hydrant fleets are organized. Yeah, it's just silly. So gold is obviously a shiny metal, so we've got the shiny Gold Fleet here with 4 Vols and a GRN. As well, I'm assuming that's Expeditionary Fleet. Let's see if I can find it. Boom. There we go. So we have the Expeditionary Fleet, which has it has a YDN, a dreadnought in the fleet. Why is that important? Well, beyond the fact that it's a 6-8 ship, 6-8 being a powerful, most powerful ship in the Y era, probably for the Hydrants. It is a command level 10 ship, meaning that it can control 10 ships above and beyond itself, meaning your entire attack fleet in any one battle round can be a total of 11 ships. If you would like to hear more information around combat and how that works, then please check out our combat tutorial in the playlist below. in the New Worlds playlist. You'll be able to find it down there. It is goes into description as to how combat works. And of course, we're going to be talking about reaction movement here in a second. Go and check that short video out as well, because reaction movement plays a key component to what's happened down here. So we can see that on this hex with the YBS, we have Gold and Expeditionary Fleet. Gold has the YDN, a YCC, and a GRN. The YCC being a command cruiser with a command factor of 9. The GRN being a sort of just normal heavy cruiser, and it has a command factor of 8. So these two ships, what's particularly interesting about the Hydran flavors of this is that the YCC for the Hydrans is a 4 attack, 6 defense ship, whereas the normal heavy cruiser is a 3 attack, 6 defense ship. So we have 2 cruisers at 3.6, 1 at 4.6, and of course the Dreadnought at 6.8. We add up all the vols, we've got a grand total of 5 vols remaining in this fleet. So 5 vols and a total of 3 cruiser, 1 Dreadnought hull. Significant, very significant. In the other surrounding hexes, we can see here we've also got a tug with a troop pod, which you may not be able to see it very clearly, but the troop pod has 2 G factors. G's in this game are indicating ground attack forces. So think of it like a battalion of soldiers being carried by this troop pod, and they can be deployed on planets and various things to take out planetary ground bases. They can also be used to be able to attack things like star bases or base stations and perform SIDS damage. Now, there is sort of a rule around that, and if you would like to see a tutorial about how ground combat or those kinds of G factors can be used in a base assault, we can certainly make that, but you'd have to let me know in the comments below. Throw it in the chat if you're catching us on the live stream, and otherwise, let us know what is going on. All right, so we've got the crippled vols in the Fog of War hex. We have a crippled vol over top the YDK, and of course, this crippled YCA. Let's take a look at the ISC side of the house. They've got, well, it'll be easier to pull up the ISC fleets because they are all in these named echelons, essentially. Let's put them on the far right. Or no, we'll put them right here. That's a little bit easier to see. Okay, so what do we have? Let's look at the first base here. We have a Y-Tug, and this Y-Tug is escorted by a YCL and 2 YFFs. What's particularly, well, of interest at least when it comes to the ISC, most of their cruisers or most of their ships are YCLs. Their YFFs are no better or no worse than anybody else's. They are a 2-3 ship, and that's sort of par for the course. Providence Fleet also has a tug over the base that it's at, and Order Fleet does not. So let's take a look at Order Fleet first. That's the far right here. You can see we've got a cruiser, heavy cruiser, and a frigate, along with a prime team, or referred to as a marshal team for the ISC. And we have in Providence Fleet, where's Providence? Providence has 2 YCLs and 2 YDDs. The YCLs, interesting. Okay, so YDDs and YCLs. So there's 4 ships there in Providence Fleet. You have essentially something very similar here with 1 YCL and 2 YFFs. And then, of course, Order Fleet, like we mentioned before, a YCA and a YFF. Take note of the YCA for the ISC. The YCA is a 4 attack, 7 defense, which is better, and I say that in quotation marks, than the YCC of the Hydrants. The YCC, although it has a higher command factor by 1, it doesn't have as many attack, or has the same amount of attack factors, but the YCA on the ISC has 1 more defense factor. Just makes it a harder target to take out. All right. Let me take a quick sip of water. You can hear my voice is starting to go a bit. And before I dive into the what has happened with regards to the border, let's go to the chat real quick, and we can I can see that there's a lot going on in the chat. So let's dive into it and just see what's going on. So I see a lot of chitter chatter. I'm going to scroll up here, and let's see, what do we got? So James, I'm going to pick up where James said. Are you playing with the base 2010 rules with nothing added, or are you playing with expansion modules? So we are using the versions of the base 2010 rules. We have copies of the war book, or basically the sort of rules in process or progress, along with all the other added modules that go with that. Advanced combat operations, fighters, and so on. And so we're using what I'll refer to as the full expanded rule set as it currently sits. And we use that as our reference as for the base rules as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. Incidentally, let me take a moment to just say, we wouldn't be able to be having this fun, this excitement, this good time playing this game without the people at the Amarillo Design Bureau. ADB has produced this game and is the team that sort of supports this, the perpetuation of it. And we're just trying to create a center of gravity around those who like to play this game, and get us all together so that we can sort of share in the fun that is this game. But we wouldn't be here without the folks at the at ADB for the game that they create, the rules that they support, and all the supplemental materials. So if you are interested in playing this game with us and so on, I highly encourage you to head over to the link to let me try that again. Head over to their website, link of which is in is in. Let me try that again. The link to Starfleet Games, which is their website, is on the YouTube channel, and you can head over there and support them by buying counters, rules, and variations, expansions of the game, so that you can participate and play with us if you would like to in future campaigns that are, as we've mentioned in previous live streams, in the process of getting put together. All right. Excuse me. My voice is really starting to go here. So we have 2010 with some homebrew rules. That's right. So we have, because the Federation and Empire game, as it's mapped out, is designed as a sort of established war game, kind of like Axis and Allies. Axis and Allies, or sort of any simulation game, has established factions and teams and units already on the board. We're using this 4X model, whereby we explore strange new worlds. We expand our borders, exploit the resources we find, and exterminate our enemies. After all, it's a war game and we fight wars. So we're taking the base rule set and adding to it, amending some rules as appropriate to be able to facilitate this 4X gameplay that we're showing you today. So that's basically what we're up to. Let's scroll down to Jim. What's that KT4 then if it isn't a tug? LOL. Well, obviously we just talked about that. The KT4 being the Kestrel, or the in this case the Riemann variation of the T4 tug. So let's we have a couple of comments from Jim. Jim being the Hydran player, the green faction on the map when we were looking at that there, or you might say they're on the bottom. And Jim says, so the Hydran Kingdom postulates that the infamous and notoriously interfering ISC spent 5/6 of their economic income on hiring Orion mercenaries, or he ballpark says at 30 EPs or economic points, to be able to hire Orion mercenaries to attack him. Interesting. The Vols crippled in XX21. XS21, by the way, is that fog of war hex we were mentioning before. I'll show you that again in a minute. Fought alongside the YCA in the black, or so that's the Orion YCA we saw that was crippled, which is in the employ of the Hydran Star Empire, legitimately on survey exploration missions. So if you're saying that it fought with the YCA, you're not. I would be curious to understand how it was you were able to retreat into a fog of war hex, because in the context of this game, which is a 4X game, you can't retreat into a fog of war hex when there are other options available. So I would be interested to see what those other options were, because you can't draw supply through a fog of war hex, therefore it doesn't fit into the supply category, and you would have to pick another option. Now, in the rules, we've mentioned it in combat. There's a variety of different priorities where when and where you can retreat to based on the criteria, and they're ordered. And so based on that, I would be curious as to understand how it was you were able to retreat into a fog of war hex. Interesting to discuss. James saying tutorials are always good for us noobs, so tutorials are good. James, why don't you tell me, is there any particular part of the game? Sounds like you already are familiar with the 2010 rule set. Is there anything that you've seen us talk about in the game that would be of interest for you in a tutorial? What do you want to learn about? How do you want to see how we apply it in this game? Let me know, and we can make that tutorial for you. Jim says the two WNRs, hold on, I lost that all of a sudden. 2 WNRs, Orion Dreadnoughts, attack the following hexes. Oh, okay, hold on. I'm going to bring the map up so we can follow along with Jim's narration. Okay, so we're looking at the map on the on the other side of the screen from where my face is. Okay, 2 WNRs, W-era Dreadnoughts from the Orions attack the following hexes. Tango 26. Where is Tango 26? Tango 26. That's down here, right here. And Tango 26, I'm assuming had a base in it. So he attacked that base. Whiskey 28. Whiskey 28. So Whiskey 28 is here. So Tango 26 and Whiskey 28. Those are important targets. And X-Ray 21, which is going to be back up here. X-Ray 21. X-Ray 21 is the one with the, let's take away the ships for a second, it might be confusing, is the one with the YDK, the blue YDK on the map. So we popped a couple bases down here in Tango 26 and Whiskey 28. And then he attacked the YDK here with the Orions. They destroyed the Hydran undefended base in Tango 26 and did 1 SIDS damage to the YBS in Whiskey 28. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was looking at Victor thinking it was a whiskey. So Whiskey 28 right here. So we say we did 1 SIDS worth of damage there. Totally popped the base in Tango 26 scene. And then, of course, attacked the YBS here. Interesting. All right. He further narrates, when it came time for the ISC to attack, they attacked into Whiskey 22. Where's Whiskey 22? Okay, so Whiskey 22 is the YBS that is the choke point here from the ISC. So they attacked in this hex right here. So they attacked in Whiskey 22. They had a YLR, so that's an Orion Light Raider, 3 attack, 3 defense. In addition to their forces, so they totally cannot claim to be squeaky clean when it comes to dealing with the Orions. Haha. Here we go. Start throwing some shade. Here we are. They gave us 10 turns to clear our space, or they would do it for us, i.e. telling us what to do in our own space. Interesting. I'm going to dial in on that in a little bit. Telling us to do in our own space. Then, the following turn, deliberately and without warning, attacked most viciously. Okay, so what it sounds like is that the ISC were making noises to the hydrants to stop being so testy, and then of course attacked. They hired a number of units to be able to pop various bases. So they tried one base, which was unsuccessful, which is the one in Whiskey 28. That's the one down here. They were successful in popping the base in Tango 26, and then, of course, tried to pop both the YDK, which was the Orion base here, and the Hydran YBS in Whiskey 22. Now, my understanding is that the Hydran player had moved a number of ships in close proximity, and I'm going to guess that they mostly were in Whiskey 23, where this resource is right here. Let's bring the ships back real quick so we can see what's going on. And so when the Orion ships came down, whether they were going to come down this way or come down this way, the Hydran ships were able to react. And again, back to our reaction rules, there's extended reaction, which is 2 hexes away, and reaction, which is 1 hex away. Extended reaction comes from ships with that little white diamond that you can see that are on the YBSs, and those are pretty much the only units at this point in the game that have it. And so as ships came close to attack the base, those ships then reacted to support units being attacked. Obviously, there were orders or instructions to the game master to be able to move those ships in support when the ISC attacked. So, interesting to see. So what ended up happening here, the ISC spent apparently a huge amount of money, 30 EP if their economy is 36.5, that's quite a bit of cash. They spent that money to be able to pop a couple of bases in Hydran space. Okay, that's good. They spent that money, popped some bases, did some damage, and then tried to do an attack on that Orion YDK that's in this hex right here. It would seem as though the Hydrans came to the Orion's defense and tried to protect them as that happened. Now, one of the things about this game and the reason why, and I'll switch here to the chat as we go. There's going to be more chat we'll get to in a moment. So why do I say that this game is getting closer to Total War? Well, Total War is a term used with in the Napoleonic era, and it meant, and it was referring to the fact that all the European powers were at war, or basically the known world at that time, so to speak, were warring with each other, or basically with Napoleon. Now, we've seen this happen not only in the Napoleonic period with Total War, but also it happened in the Great War, World War I, and again in World War II, and arguably could occur again in the future. The idea that we have a wide array of global powers that come together to war or wage war against each other based on what's going on. The beginnings of World War I was a series of dominoes that fell in that one faction or one country indicated their support for another, and that other country would begin a war based on some action that was taken against it. So what ended up happening is there were a number of factions that were supporting each other. One event caused conflict between two of them, and then everybody else was pulled into the war. In this case, what we have, and this is why I talk about the role-playing aspect to this war game, let me pull back the map real quick and show you again the big picture of what's going on our hexagonal map. Let me move this down a little bit and move my head to the other side. Okay. Please excuse the white space here. But as you can see on this map, we've got the Romulans at the top, and we have this sort of crescent shape as we go from the Romulans, big red, the ISC, the yellow, the Hydrans, which are the green and white, the Carnarvon, which are the green and yellow, the Klingons, which are the black and white, the Romulans down here in black and red, and then the Gorn in white and red. So what has been occurring up until this point is the Hydran faction, now that we can all see each other, or at least everybody in the conflict crescent can see each other, has been engaging in various kinds of dialogue and discourse and back-channel discussions to encourage going after a particular faction. Ironically, it just happens to be the Klingons, which I find amusing. Most recently, just now, in the chat, Jim has made the claim that how dare another faction, another player, have the audacity to tell him or any other empire, other faction, what to do in their own territorial space. How dare they do that? That is a line too far. Totally unacceptable. What I find particularly interesting about that is that the Hydrans engaged with the Klingons in discussion about a particular planet that was in our space, and that planet, for some reason, had a religious significance for the Hydrans. Keeping in mind that the Hydrans are role-playing a religious theocracy, so they are religiously focused, and had somehow indicated that this planet, again, looking at the map, the Hydrans are here, the Klingons are down here. There's quite a bit of distance between us and even another empire in between us. And yet, the Hydrans felt that it was appropriate to threaten violence should the Klingons somehow interfere with this particular planet. ironically, a Messiah event, an event where a religious pilgrims, shall we say, wage war to be able to attack a particular target, attack that very planet, which was a religious site, took it over, and then, of course, the Klingons went in this past turn and took it. But nonetheless, the Hydrons decided to dip their fingers and stir the pot with other factions, and yet at this point cry foul when others do the same to them. In addition, although there's no quote-unquote hard proof, the Hydrons have been actively using rhetoric in discussions, in the role play anyway, to be able to raise the temperature of potential conflict against the Klingons, referring to the Klingons as the second heresy. In the beginnings of the game, there had been a story about how a Tholian ship had come out of warp, exploded or crash landed on the Hydron homeworld, causing a sort of nuclear winter as it exploded in the orbit. We have a YouTube short on that, just a quick little visualization if you want to check that out. And they, therefore, causing this terrible catastrophe to occur to the Hydrons, became the first heresy, the first sort of great enemy. And there was a minor faction earlier on in the game. Again, we can discuss that in the history up to turn 50 kind of video that we could do. And they attacked and took out that minor faction that just happened to be Tholian. Now, the Tholians, which are on the other side of the map, also came in and have come through a wormhole, which I will show you again here. So while I don't have the Hydron side of the map, or sorry, the Tholian side of the map to show you, this particular, of course, my head is absolutely in the way. Let's move me over there. So this little wormhole here goes to Tholian space, and a Tholian ship came through, and you can see that Tholian ship here. It's the red ship that's crippled. So it came through, and the Hydrons confiscated the ship and impounded the personnel, and so on. So the Tholians have become a particular focal point in the role-playing aspect. Now, we had mentioned before, let me take away the ships real quick, this planet here had been a Klingon planet, and the Klingons on that planet were quite aggressive and hostile, and as the Hydrons came close, they reached out and attacked them, and therefore, because that faction should have the audacity to defend its own territorial integrity, that the Hydrons considered them the second heresy, and by consequence and association, the Klingons, i.e. my faction, became the second heresy by relationship or association to those Klingons there. I find it particularly ironic and hilariously hypocritical that now the Hydrons are claiming that the ISC, how dare they tell us, the Hydrons, what to do in our own space, because we are the only faction that can tell other people what to do. Very interesting. So, with that little narration over, let's go back into the chat. So, James, you might have heard my dog just moaning and groaning there. James saying, explore strange new worlds and exterminate our enemies. Sounds like this all takes place in the mirror Star Trek universe. Let me tell you, space is a dark and dangerous place, and you better have some phasers and photons and shields if you're going to go out into that jungle of an environment. So that's what we like to do, is we like to explore in force, shall we say, and have fun doing it. All right, going back to what Jim's saying, going back to the history of what was going on along that border region, the Vols arrived in the Hex and helped the YCA defend off 2 YCRs. So YCRs are just other ships that you can buy from the Orions, and I believe, if memory serves, they are a 3-5 ship versus the YCA, which is, as I look at it right now, a 3-6 ship. So the Vols backed up the YCA and attacked and defended it from sort of contracted MERC attack. James and Bill are going back and forth with each other. Let's see here. Okay, Tony, why did you point at Victor 28 instead of WW 28? Because it looked like a W, the 2 V's. In French, we call that a W. That's a W. It looks like two V's together is a W, obviously, understandably. There we are. WW22 ISC attack fleet was 3 YCLs, oh my goodness, 2 YDDs, 2 YFFs, and the Orion YLR. So what's interesting about that, so he's describing the fleet that attacked him, 3 YCLs, 2 DDs, and 2 FFs. If we go to the map real quick and zoom in to the ISC, we can see, interestingly enough, Hydran ships are crippled. I don't see any ISC ships crippled. Why is that? Could it be that they just use the the Orions to soak up all the damage? I don't know. We have Truth Fleet, which is nowhere near the border here that has a cripple in it. But when we look at Providence and Order, no cripples there. So interesting to see that the ISC have engaged in a hostile act or like engaged in combat to cause casualties and damage on the Hydran side without incurring any on their own. So I would argue that that's an effective use of forces, despite what you want to say about paying 30 EP for MERCs to do this or that. Very interesting that they didn't incur any cost of damage, because one of the things that's interesting to note here is if we take away the ships, there is a big lack of infrastructure, i.e. repair capacity on the border. For context, a YBS, which is these little ones right here, they can repair 2 points of damage. Let me illustrate what that means for you. As we look at the ships, and we can look at, for example, in the ISC Echelon fleet, let's look at one of these YCLs. I'm going to take it out and just put it right here for a second. So when we look at this YCL, it is a 4-5 ship, 4 attack, 5 defense. Once this ship takes 5 points of damage, or 5 points of damage is allocated that it would have taken in combat. If you want to understand more about combat, again, we have a tutorial about that. Check it out in the playlist. But nonetheless, it gets crippled and gets flipped. And this is what a crippled ship looks like with the black line through it, or a line through it. Now, it's a 2-3 ship. The difference between the 3 defense factor of the crippled and the 5 when it's fully functional is 2. That's the 2 points of damage that a YBS can repair. So it can repair effectively 1 YCL a turn. Sound good? Now, by contrast, a YDK can repair 8 points of damage, or 4 YCLs. So whereas 1 YBS can repair 1 YCL in a turn, a YDK, 1 base, can do the work of 4 YBSs in that same instance of repairing 4 ships. So very interesting to note. And as we look at the map, you will notice that while the Orions do have a YDK, there are no other significant Hydran bases on the border. Granted, there are only YBSs on the ISC side, but there's 4 of them, but they are only YBSs. So this strategy of hiring all these MERCs, these Orions to attack, might have been a strategy to avoid taking damage, yet inflicting it on your opponent. So it would be very interesting to see over the next couple turns how this maps out and how it works as a strategy. I've never seen this used in this way before, so it'll be very interesting to see the results of this as we walk forward. So I realize I'm spending a lot of time on this, but that's because this is a real sort of hotspot in what's going on. This little, to use a term that someone else used in the game, brush fire of a conflict, is this going to turn into a full-fledged, big burn? Is there going to be a full-scale war between the Hydrans and the ISC? That would be fun to watch. Or is this going to be a minor skirmish and it's going to sort itself out in a short period of time? We shall see. All right. Lastly, let's check out first global total war, I believe is Jim was trying to say here, was the 7 Years' War in the 1870s. Boom! New coffee subscriber, Robert. Hey, I'm just about to get your comments here, Robert. Thank you so much for your support in caffeinating us, me, keeping us perky along as we go. I have some vestiges of my coffee that I had earlier. Let me drink, keep calm, and carry on, as they say, while I celebrate your support. Thank you so much. Incidentally, for anyone else who's interested in caffeinating this host and keeping this show high energy and high yield, you can also check out coffee.com//New Worlds and offer a one-time coffee donation or any of the tiers that are there to give us a monthly support and or participate in our Discord channel if that's something you'd be interested in doing. Our Discord channel is where we sling shade and role play and share comments around rules and other ways that we can optimize this game and have more fun doing it. If that sounds like it's interesting to you and being part of a community of Federation and Empire players and all things sort of ADB and Star Trek and sci-fi, then please consider joining us over on the Discord channel by subscribing and supporting us either on Coffee. You can also do that over on our Patreon account. Again, the link is in the description for this video. All right, Robert, speaking of which, let's get right to what you're saying. Robert says, I've been playing F&E since 86. That's pretty much when it started. Been collecting the base games and expansions for my own homebrew game, mostly solo. I spend many evenings just trimming counters, my new obsession. Well, Robert, it sounds like you would be a great candidate to join in our next campaign. And if you are a subscriber to this channel and a supporter on Patreon and or Coffee, then you will get first dibs when we pull out the notification and the roll call for new players in the new campaign that is coming. We of course have the New Worlds campaign, which is the name of this channel, the namesake campaign that's ongoing right now. But we do have another campaign that's in the works. Like I say, that should be coming in the coming weeks or months. Excuse me, weeks or months, and we'll see how that materializes. But we will make a notification on this channel to let you know that that's coming. And if we are at 500 subscribers by that time, then we can do it in a community post to let you know that we are putting out the notification. Another way to be able to let you know and communicate with our wonderful community of supporters here on YouTube. We're at 190 now. Can we get to 200 before the end of the week? Help us out there. Let's get to 200 before Friday, the end of this week. Okay, so we've got more going on here. Oh my goodness, so much chat. Let's go back to the map. We spent a lot of time on the hydrants. We spent a lot of yeah, I was on the map the whole time. Look at that. I spent a lot of time on the hydrants, and let's see what else is going on in space. So we can see. You can't see it. Let me just move this ever so slightly to the side. You can see that there is this wormhole that the Gorn have gone through. They've shown up on the right side of the map. Nothing that's really changing too much, but we do see that there, and that could be a sort of a vector of communication and attack at some point in the future. We shall see. So the big conflict in the Hydran Empire is what's going on the border with the IC. Let's go down to the Carnivon and see what's going on here. Oh my goodness gracious me, this is getting real, says me. So what's going on here? First of all, let's take away the ships. It's a little bit busy. You can see here that the Carnivon have crossed the border. They've crossed the border. This was the negotiated border, this diagonal line from Oscar 39 down to Sierra 41, down to Sierra 42, and across down here. Now, before this planet had been discovered, which is a minor faction, we had established a base here in Romeo 41, which we were then going to upgrade to a YDK to be able to facilitate sort of defending our space from the Carnivon. Now, the Carnivon took that as an overt threat, or at least that was the rationale, with some support and prodding from the Hydrans, i.e. hypocrisy. Can we say it now? Hashtag hypocrisy. So the Carnivon then came over the border in force, full stereo sound, Dolby 7.2 surround, blowing the Klingons to the ground and destroyed not only that base, but moved their fleets up. So what have we seen? We've seen this massive fleet, which is Den Fleet. Let's see here. Den Fleet. So we've got Den Fleet and Home Fleet. Now, I'm going to show you, actually, instead of showing you just the ships, I'm going to show you something called comm pots. This is another feature in Vassal. It's going to take a little moment to think. And we're going to show you the two fleets that are coming. So fundamentally, it's Den Fleet and Home Fleet. So let's find D on the list. Oh my goodness, it's not exactly user-friendly. Okay, so Den Fleet, highlighted here, has a total of 9 ships in the fleet. That's Den Fleet. It has a total attack and defense factor of 21 to 40. That's Den Fleet. So that's the fleet that's here, along with these other ships. So we have a YDD, a YFF. Oh, sorry, we got 3 YFFs, a YDD, a YCC, a YCC, and a drone bombardment ship. 2 DDs, 3 FFs, a cruiser, and 2 drone bombardment ships. So it looks like a total number of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ships plus the 9 in Den Fleet puts us at a total of 17 ships. Not insignificant. So then Den Fleet, and again, I know you can't see this very easily here, has a 21-40 attack and defense respectively. As I continue down the list looking for home fleet, and there's a bunch of different home fleets. Where is home fleet? Again, not exactly the most visually stimulating when it comes to using Vassal. Perhaps Carnarvon home fleet is what it'll be named under. I apologize for trying to find it sort of on the fly, but this is a useful tool when we're using or playing this game to be able to sort of see what's going on. There should be a Carnarvon home fleet. There it is. Carnarvon home fleet has a total of 16 ships in that fleet with a 40-69 attack and defense respectively. So keeping in mind when we looked at the total fleet cap, you're talking about 49 ships total, and they have just over 100 attack and defense collectively. When you combine these two fleets and these two groups of ships, we've got 16 and 17 ships respectively on the border here. That represents the bulk, if not most of all, their fleet. Now, the Klingons have nothing that could even remotely stop them. The only thing that's stopping them, really, at this point, is supply. If we assume that they have 3 hex supply, and let's just use the supply tool to demonstrate this, you can see here, oh, let me just make sure that I've got the right supply amount selected. Yep. So you can see this highlighted section is the limit of their supply. What does that mean? That means that when ships end a turn in a hex outside of this little highlighted area, they will have half the attack factors if they're attacked, and they cannot move as much. They move half the rate they would normally move. So in this case, if they move normally 4, they'd move 2. They have half the attack factors. They have still all the defense factors, but they have half the combat effectiveness that they have in a fight. So that is the limiting factor right here, right now. That is buying the Klingons space and time to be able to come up with a response plan, which we will talk about in a moment. What am I trying to do here? I'm trying to get the supply menu up, close, supply menu, and take away that Carnarvon. There we go. All right, so that's what's going on along the border here. A lot of business, a lot of bad news, exciting stuff happening, and away we go. Now, real quick, this little planet right here was the religious center of all the conflict or the rhetoric that was going on. The previous turn, this Messiah event occurred and basically took out this planet. In response to that, the Klingons went in to sort of save the day, and we were able to capture the ship in question. You'll see this little yellow ship with the red line. That ship was already crippled, and we went in there and captured it. It's one of the functions that a prime team can execute. There is a prime team in home fleet, and we were able to go into that hex and capture that ship. Now, in this case, that particular ship needs to be sort of converted to our own technology, and based on the requirements on that particular ship, based on the fact that it's a cruiser, we will have to take it to the homeworld to be able to do that. All right, let's go over to the Romulan side of the house, and boy, things are getting exciting. 2 big things to take away here. 1, the Klingons took back Nepal, but at a cost. We devastated the planet and took it back, and it went from being a minor planet to a developing planet. The population can only take so much of a beating before it actually reduces in size significantly, and that's effectively what's happened here. A minor planet produces 3 EP when it's fully functional, a developing 2. Both planets, developing or minor, only produce 1 when devastated, and that's what's happening right now. Now, the Klingons have put on on station, you might say, 2 specific fleets that we were just talking about compots a second ago. So let's just look at the compot numbers for Joint Task Force Alpha and Gamma. So I think I can just go straight down to the J's and pull that up. I realize as I'm doing this that this might not be the most visually stimulating for you, but I'll just quickly highlight this. JTF Gamma has 5 ships with a 15-21 split, and Alpha is the other one there with 6 ships and a 17-23 split. Now, when we just pull those, let's see here, Klingon Alpha, Klingon Gamma, and so that's what this looks like as of right now. A command cruiser, which has a command rating of 9, and a bunch of these F4s, which are taking up space and supporting, and away we go. Back here, behind Nippon, within extended reaction range, important to note, of this planet, meaning that they can react and support any attacks on this planet, are a number of new builds, D4, 3 F4s, and E2s, as well as a bunch of crippled ships for repair. And there are 4 crippled F4s in this hex, as well as a D3, which is a W-era cruiser. What is important to note here, as I mentioned before about YDKs, they can repair 8 points of damage. That translates into 4 F4s. 2 points of damage repaired to be able to bring an F4 from crippled to fully functional. They are a 3 attack, 4 defense ship, which is pretty significant. Almost the same as, for example, the Carnarvon or Hydrant cruisers. And again, 3-4 ships, and I can bring 4 of them back online during my turn. So that ability to repair and move ships forward is very important. When we look at the Romulan side of the same border, you don't see that same capacity to repair, replenish, and put back into the fight the units that are crippled. In addition, you can see that they do have a YDK, but it is crippled right now. And as a result, when a base is crippled, it can no longer repair ships. So this YDK, when it was fully operational, was a gold mine as far as like a critical strategic resource to be able to repair ships. It is currently out of commission. And that was the biggest sort of gain from when we attacked that target. We attacked it, got it within 1 SIDS or 1 Starbase incremental damage system of being crippled. And then through the use of a prime team mission known as Sabotage, that's my Star Trek pronunciation reference, Star Trek 6, by the way, we were able to cripple it and make it so that base can no longer repair other ships. So when we look at what's here as far as the Romulan fleet, you will notice here in this section of space on the crippled YDK, there is a two Y-era warbirds, which are the cruiser for the Romulans. They are a 4-5 ship. 2 crippled two crippled warbirds, 2 fully functional warbirds. On the border here, you've got a bunch of crippled frigates and other ships, and specifically of note, Home and Second Legion, Home Fleet and Second Legion. Those are, if we pull them up real quick, and again, this is stuff that if you're a player, you can see all this stuff in the map and in the game. I'm just showing it for you as players to be able to watch and see what's going on. So what's particular of note here is that Home Fleet, which again is in this hex, is nothing but crippled ships. It's a crippled command cruiser, which is the YKB, Kingbird. The WB, Warbird, is a cruiser, and these YSNs are frigates. There is a non-crippled Vulture, which is a dreadnought, Kingbird, command cruiser, and Warbird cruiser that are also in that hex. So 3 non-crippled ships, basically everything else right here is crippled. We have a W-era frigate and a W-era, I believe an FB is a kind of like a tug, but I have to confirm that. I believe it's a tug. Either way, FB, WSN, they're all here, and away you go. Now, what that means is that you have a limited number of non-crippled ships and a significant lack of ability to repair the crippled ships and get them back into the fight. These ships down here, we've previously looked at these before. These are all W-era sort of exploration fleets. Not at this point a significant threat, although they can certainly get into the fight. What we're more concerned about from like watching this front are the new ship builds that are coming from the Romulan homeworld and are going to get introduced into the fight. Now, what do we see as a result, or what will impact that? There's this little thing here. It's a monster, and the SS refers to it being a sun snake. For those of you who are not familiar, and I was not familiar with it myself in the first time I saw this, sun snakes are a special kind of monster that basically like to go where it's really hot and high gravity, i.e. the heart of a sun. They will make their way to a sun, dig inside the middle of it, and cause a supernova through, I think it's laying eggs or whatever it is. Anyways, not long story short, they will destroy solar systems, and if you have planets in a hex, they will eliminate that planet because of causing the supernova. What's of particular note is the location of this sun snake. It is within 2 hexes of the Romulan homeworld. Now, we don't know how tough the sun snake is. It could be like a baby. It could be big and bad. But nonetheless, it is the potential for it to cause major damage to any surrounding planetary system is a big deal. And in the capital system, the Romulans have a homeworld, which is obviously important, a minor planet, 3 EP, and a colony, which is 1 EP. If the sun snake were to make it to the home system, one of these may be destroyed. And that would be a huge catastrophic thing for the Romulans. Now, I experienced this exact same thing 2 games ago, and I had a base protecting the planet in question. And when the sun snake arrived and blew up the sun and destroyed the system along with the base, I freaked out. I said, goodness gracious, GM, what the hell's going on? How come it got destroyed and my base didn't even get a chance to shoot at it? Well, the base, as per the rules when we talk about bases, and we talk about this specifically in the combat tutorial, bases are located by default adjacent to the planet. You can indicate that they're not, they're co-located somewhere else, but by default, they're located adjacent to the planet. And as you can think, there's quite a distance between the planet here and the sun, right? The sun snake isn't interested in the planet. It goes straight to the sun, which means the base cannot attack or have its combat potential factored in to the sun snake. You need ships for that. You need mobile units to be able to engage the sun snake, not bases. So in my case, because I had no mobile units, it went straight to the sun, blew up the system, and I lost the planet. I was pissed. Now, in this case, because monsters have a smaller economy, i.e. none, they go first before the Romulan player. So if they were to move closer to his homeworld, and it's only 2 hexes away, it will move within 1 hex, and then the next turn, it will be able to move and attack his system before he gets a chance to move. That means the Romulan player only has this turn to build and respond to the sun snake, and he has to do that now. The threat or the risk is that if that sun snake makes its way to his home system, it could, and most likely will, destroy one of his planets. It could be his homeworld, it could be a minor world, it could be the colony. If it's the major planet, here's the doozy, it'll also destroy all his shipyards. Because the shipyards, by default, are presumed to be in the home system of the home planet, or the capital planet. And so if they devastate that system by having a supernova, he won't have any shipyards to build ships to fight me and hold me off. So there's an economic impact and sort of like an infrastructure impact to be able to build more ships. That would be crazy if it happened. It would be nuts. The Romulan player needs to take significant action to fix that or sort that out. Last thing we're going to talk or touch on here is the fact that the Gorn have also started to stir the pot with the Romulans. This used to be a Romulan resource. This fleet has come and taken it, and I have news that the Gorn have now declared war on the Romulans and are attacking. Now, is this opportunistic? Is there something going on in the back channel? I can neither confirm nor deny what may or may not be happening. You'd have to join our Discord channel to be able to see and hear what's going on in the back channels, at least right around now. We'll be happy to talk about it whenever may or may not be happening at some point in the future on a live stream. But if you want to stay up to date, head over to our Discord channel by subscribing either on our Patreon or on Coffee, and you can help support us and be part of the Discord discussion at the same time. So the Gorn have attacked the Romulan player, and that's going to cause a second front in the conflict with the Roms. One of the things that's interesting to think about here, and maybe here, what I'll do is I will highlight the Gorn player first, and then we will discuss. Move my head over. Then we can discuss what all these wars mean. So you can see here, first of all, that the home fleet, which is the big Gorn fleet that they have, let's pull it up. There we go. So the Gorn home fleet is basically where all his business is. He's got 6 destroyers, 2 frigates, 2 light cruisers, and his dreadnought. That is the biggest, baddest fleet that he has. If we looked at the fleet cap, you will remember that the Gorn player only has a total of 30 ships. There are, hold on, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Over 30% of his ships are in this one fleet. There's a couple ships down here in Strike Fleet. Now let's pull that up and you can take a look. Named fleets. Strike Fleet. So we got a YCC, YCL, and a couple YDDs. So basically 50% of his military forces are split between Home and Strike Fleet right here. Of note in that is that these are all basically his Y ships. Before now, the Gorn player had been restricted with basically W-era ships, and now he's populating Y-era combat ships, and that's going to make a big difference in his compot as he goes forward, the attack and defense factors. Also, in addition, if we take away the ships for a second, my understanding is that this should have a YDK logo on it, and that it's going to be upgraded or being upgraded in 2 turns. By the way, upgrading a base or changing it from a YBS to a YDK is a 2-turn process. You will initiate it on the turn. It will finish essentially at the end of the building phase in your second turn. So depending on your level of initiative, if you're going before or after the players you're fighting, your base may not be completed by the time that they have their turn and can attack you. So something to think about when it comes to initiative and fighting these conflicts. So anyways, YDK in process, and like I say, ships continuing to move forward to the front now between the Gorn and the Romulans. So let me take this second now, just before I dive into the chat. I want to talk about why this is important when it comes to this game and the total war aspect. In this game, we have a number of players with a wide range of experience, period. The Federation and Empire rule set, as I've talked about before, is a robust reference. There's a lot of nuance there, and going through the experience of actually fighting a war, the logistics of it, how battles end up resolving, like do I actually win those fights or not? What is effective? What kind of ships or composition of fleets versus other composition of fleets? The randomness of it. Sometimes things go your way, sometimes things do not. And how you can influence those different characteristics of a fight to sort of be of your advantage or not. So this whole experience back and forth and understanding how it works is new to most of these players. And we are going through a process as players playing this game, learning and figuring out how our GM, who is doing this for the first time as well as a GM, is managing the process of the turns, the conflicts, and everything else. So as we move through this as players and the GM, we are all learning what works and what doesn't work. The idea of going total war, like global or in this case galactic conflict, It provides everybody the opportunity to learn what works and learn what doesn't, going through that experimentation process and figuring out where I can double down for best effect and what I can pull back on so that I don't get hurt too much. And so that process of learning where, like, what weaknesses are fatal, what things are good to double down on, where your strengths can be leveraged, that process of figuring things out is exactly what's going on right now. Now, while the Romulans are set for success with that massive fleet that they have, dropping the hammer, MC Hammer style, they haven't gotten into their fight yet. The ISC and the Hydrons are stirring the pot a little bit, and it's certainly a player-on-player conflict is different than dealing with a minor faction, both on the scale and scope of the opponent you're facing, but also in the way that results are going to sort of have a carry-on effect further down the line. Now we have the Carnivons, the Klingons, the Romulans, the Gorn, the Hydran, and the ISC. Essentially, the conflict crescent is they are all fighting each other in one way or another. The only, ironically, the only person, the only faction who isn't currently in a fight is the one best equipped for it, and that's the Romulans. With that said, let's roll into the commentary. Speaking of the Romulans, I see Dell is joined us in the chat. Hello, Dell. Let me roll up a little bit here, and what do we got? I'm going to pick up on Dale's comments. The Romulans are just waiting for everyone to understand theirs is the superior way. ISC saw my defending fleet with that YDN and turned tail and ran away without firing a shot. Oh, they are just chickens. I think there's method to their madness, but we shall see what that means or how that will play out as we go forward in the game. Watch out, the Hydras will say it's heresy, and the next thing you know, a squid is in an environmental suit knocking on your door. 1 point of damage takes 0.5 EP to repair. That's an important point. When we're talking about bases, YBSs and YDKs, when you're repairing bases there during the repair phase or the build phase of your turn, you can do that for $0.50, basically. 0.5 EP per point of damage. Therefore, a 2-point ship that you need to repair, i.e. the F4 that I was making reference to, or the YCL that the ISC have, that costs you $1, 1 EP, to repair. Now, if you were going to use battlefield repair or repairing in the midst of combat, which is an advanced technique that you can use, and we've made reference to that in this game or in these live streams, that costs you $1 or 1 EP per point of damage. It also takes away from your capacity to repair in your following turn. So there's a lot going on there. And when it comes to repairing things like a YDK or when you're bringing like a tug or a convoy to do that kind of repair, that also costs you 1 EP per point of damage. So when you're talking about repairing ships, the half price or the 50% discount only works when you're doing that at a working, non-crippled YBS or YDK, and when you're doing that during your repair build phase as we go. All right. Robert Martin, $5 well spent. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. And let us know how we can continue to offer you and the rest of our audience value as we carry on. Once someone breaks a treaty with the Star Empire of Hydrax, there must be retribution and tithes paid. Yes, apparently wrong me once, wrong me forever is the mantra of the Hydran people. Restitution and revenge burn in the hearts of the faithful. Dunning-Kruger effect, I think, is in full effect in stereo sound there. Look that up if you haven't already. Exciting and delighting. James says, looks like WC, wife command, is requesting my assistance. I will have to catch the rest of the replay. Take care. Thank you, James. As you're catching this on the replay, thank you so much for being here, your support. Very much looking to, again, provide fun and excitement. Whoa, speaking of which, I hadn't noticed. I see that Tim Dixon Coombs is our latest subscriber on the channel. Tim, thank you so much for hitting the subscribe button. Looking forward to seeing you in the chat next time round. Looking forward to getting to that big 200 by Friday. If not, we can get, or if we get to 200, can we get beyond? We shall see. 200 by Friday, that's the goal. Can you get us there? Let me know. If you can, by the way, and you like things that we're doing here on this channel, you like all things Star Trek, geek, sci-fi, and war game turn-based strategy, please consider sharing this video and our other content to your friends. Tell 2 friends, as we used to say in the Navy, and share that information. Don't hold it don't make it a secret. Let everybody else know that this kind of fun stuff exists and that it's worth your time. All right. Last couple things in the chat. We've got Bill and Del. Oh, big slow target. Nah, just my old handle from SFC. Speaking of SFC, back in the days, Starfleet Command computer game version of Starfleet Battles. For those of you who don't already know, Federation Empire is the strategic risk level gameplay that we play when it comes to all things in the Starfleet universe and Star Trek. But the ship-to-ship battle, being in the captain's chair, is the tactical level implementation of this game, and that is called SFB, Starfleet Battles. That tabletop paper-based game was replicated in a computer game format called Starfleet Command. There are 3 versions of that game. I tried them all, and SFC 3, by far the best version of them. They were fantastic. Really enjoyed it back in the old GameSpy days. Loved it back then. All right, what else we got? We got Bill and Chuck, Jim. So what's Chuck saying? Chuck's saying, hey, I'm not fighting anyone yet. Absolutely. And my apologies for everybody. I just don't have the other side of the map. We currently have the west and the east. Hopefully, we didn't necessarily share this specifically, but the Federation have come through a wormhole and are in Klingon space. We shared that in the live stream last live stream. And so looking forward to be able to swap maps with the Federation. And once we've done that, then we'll be one big happy family. It won't be the Conflict Crescent. It'll be the Burning Ring of Fire. I need like an echo effect on that right now. So the Ring of Fire is coming next week, hopefully. Knock on wood. Although, why would you look forward to something like that? Either way, Conflict Crescent shall round its edges and turn into a full circle. It'll be coming your way next Saturday at 11 o'clock. That's when we do these live streams. Otherwise, be on the lookout for content on this channel as we roll through the week. I'll be taking your comments below on what tutorials, what other video, what kind of things that you want to see in this or on this channel and around this game. Also, throw some love towards our CGI artist, Paul, who creates those wonderful animations using the ships. Let him know how much you appreciate what he does, the work that he creates, and how much you want to see more of it. I want to see lots of comments letting him know how good they are and how much we want to see more of them, because after all, the trailer is the most popular video on this channel at this point, and that's all Paul's work, and I want to see more of that as we go forward. So thank you so much, everybody. It's been a fantastic time being here with you today. I'm going to let my voice take a little bit of a rest as we move forward and have a little chit-chat in our Discord channel post-live stream. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, subscribe, help us get to 200. If you're thinking about that this is something that you like, also consider going over to coffee.com/New Worlds or our Patreon link in the description of this video, and consider offering us some support, whether it's a one-time or monthly support package. If you hit that Discord level tier, then you can join us in our Discord channel and share in the chitter chatter, throwing of shade, and the otherwise tomfoolery that happens in that space. Thank you so much, everybody. Really looking forward to seeing you next week, 11 o'clock on Saturday. Bye for now.